After years of speculation trying to understand when Elden Ring would be coming out and what it would be, we finally have the game, and it's better than ever we could have expected. Not only is Elden Ring the next evolutionary step in the SoulsBorne franchise, it is also the next step in the open world design in general. It is a game so vast with a scope and scale, so magnificent, it just makes everything else in comparison seem like child's play. So with Elden Ring being so expansive in terms of its grandeur, it is truly the spiritual successor to the Dark Souls that we've earned for. And to answer that question, yes, it is. It isn't just another beloved franchise bogged down by a boring open world design that no one ever wanted. It revolutionizes the modern open world by getting rid of every aspect that brings in player frustration and repetitive grind, in exchange for an open world that lets you breathe in its atmosphere with its majestic gothic landscape, its incredibly deep running lore, and its fantastical system that never holds your hand. Let's take a look at the deeper design of Elden Ring and try to make sense of why it works so well where other open world games failed horrendously. Ever since it was first announced that George R. Martin would be part of this magnificent open world, people were skeptical. Nobody knew that his involvement would be, and if his involvement would actually deter From Software from their own following of their vision. Though after the release of the game, From Software confirmed that George R. R. Martin's involvement was only in the world building and the lore of the game. They did not want to restrict his creative vision by game design, and so the lands between were born. History and lore was developed by the creative mind of George R. R. Martin. This lore is so deep that it runs years before the games begin. In fact, it follows the story of the first Elden Lord, Godwig the Golden. It speaks how Queen Marika lost her power and will to live, and how the Elden Ring was shattered due to the greed and corruption spreading across the lands. Now it's up to us, Tarnished, to find the shattered pieces of Elden Ring and reforge it to become the Elden Lord. While the player's main goal in this game is to reforge the Elden Ring, the developers were out here trying to reforge the open world genre. You see, many people were skeptical because of the open world genre had become so bloated in the recent history. Compared to its underlying mysteries of the SoulsBorne worlds, this seemed like a step in the wrong direction. People were expecting to be a flurry of the side quests, checklists, and boring errands that would annoy even the most hardcore Souls fans. It felt like a sellout, a cop-out that developers were using instead of creating a smaller series of detailed and challenging levels that fans have come to love. You see, the level design in From Software games is why fans loved the franchise so much. There's just so much mystery, so much detail, and so much to find even in the tiniest of levels. Every crevice and nook and cranny had something for you to find. However, an open world design doesn't halter From Software from being able to do exactly that. Elden Ring has a world so vast and expansive, and yet every single aspect of exploration is rewarded. You can find dungeons, new locations, side quests, and NPCs that will never be on your screen as a checklist. In fact, every single exploration moment that you will have is organic and well defined. You will run into these NPCs and side quests by exploring the world on your own. This is essentially an antithesis of how the modern open world works. You have a plethora of icons in the map of the other games. They are bloated user interfaces where you have the constant objective marked that shows you where to go and tells you what to do. Side quests have repetitive designs such as fetch quests and clearing out abandoned caps. However, this wasn't the case with Dark Souls, and it certainly isn't the case with Elden Ring either. While all of these things are mentioned above are present in Elden Ring, you don't have any necessity of doing them forcibly. I remember this quest early in the game, which is given to you by a girl named Erika. It is hand-delivering a letter to her father, who is held out in a siege at their castle. Once you reach the castle, there is so much to do. from an alternative optional boss fight to clearing out the level and finding collectibles, as well as finding items and rewards while also being able to do quests you were there to do. None of those things are presented as a checklist though. Everything you do is based in your own curiosity. Just like every other Dark Souls games, Elden Ring starts out as the most frustrating endeavor. In fact, Elden Ring might start out as even more frustrating than the rest of the games. This is due to the one thing. The open world design is massive and it does not hold your hand. Ever since you enter into the Limgrave, you have no direction of where to go, whereas the linear levels in Dark Souls are straightforward. As you head forward, you will find a boss fight and you will progress further into the story. Here, that's just not the case, and you must find everything organically while exploring. The difficulty stems partly from that, and the fact that you're under-leveled for every boss that you will encounter at the start of the game. Now the first objective for you is to level up a bit. Head to the dungeons and explore, find the things that work for you, such as spells, weapons, spirit summons, and ashes of war. These will be the difference makers in the battle against bosses and difficult areas of the game. When it comes to the overall difficulty, Elden Ring is a much easier game in comparison to both Dark Souls and Demon Souls. First off, the amount of weapon variety and ashes of war present here, it will be increasingly hard-hitting and will aid you a lot in the boss fights and typical encounters. However, spirit summons are the most broken aspect of this game. Even if you have a spirit summon that doesn't have a lot of high damage attacks or a lot of HP, they can still distract your opponents for you and take a lot of their aggression away. This can give you easy openings to attacks and destroy your opponents, whether they're typical enemies or bosses. There are also way more bonfires, also known as the Site of Grace in Elden Ring. These make sure that you have enough checkpoints to fast travel in this world, as well as removed some of the player frustrations from dying to a boss and having to traverse through many different enemies to fight the boss once again. Spells are also incredibly powerful here, as compared to the rest of the From Software games. You can create a proper mage build and win the game with it, though you will have to do a bit more grinding and exploration to find those spells and upgrade those spell slots. It will be a rewarding endeavor by the end. A lot of the PvP is me battling mages with my bleed build, and most of the time I'm getting my ass kicked straight up. The game gets easier as you progress through it, such as the case from any From Software games. However, with Elden Ring you have more tools in your arsenal than ever before. When it comes to bosses and the enemy variety, Elden Ring is perhaps the best game ever made. Dark Souls is a series that provides itself on enemy variety and boss fights. The same can be said for any of the From Software games. Whether it's Sekiro Shadows Die Twice or Bloodborne, these games have some of the most amazing AI and some of the best boss fights that you will ever find. This tradition is back with Elden Ring, on much grander scale than ever before. Elden Ring has a total of about 83 bosses, 77 of which are unique. Aside from that, you have a ton of different enemies in the world around you, such as mini bosses and different mobs that you can tackle on your journey to become the Elden Lord. The lands between is also a very rewarding place, with loads of loot to find and upgrades to get, while also finding pieces of history and lore that you won't get anywhere else. This aspect also leads up to the level design. The game truly shines when it comes to location variety and a scenic beauty. A lot of the open world games, even most of the SoulsBorne games, followed a traditional level design for the most part. Sekiro is set in Japan. It usually follows a particular Japanese art style. Bloodborne has a gothic Lovecraft feel to it, while Dark Souls a medieval dark fantasy world. However, Elden Ring is not set on any of the patterns. It takes creative liberty anywhere it wants. This is extremely relevant when it comes to the Raya Lucaria Academy. You go from the dreary atmosphere of Lurinia of the Lakes and head directly into this beautiful mix of gothic scenery of Dark Souls and Bloodborne, like a Lovecraftian architecture that you never expected to be in this game. Whereas you head into Caelid, you will find a hellish landscape where similar to Dante's Inferno. The game is brimming with atmospheric locations, changes in scenery, and so much for you to explore and seek out. There are forests, swamps, dungeons, deserts, wastelands, and war-torn areas, lakes, mountains, and underground world that is completely separate to the lands between. This is the part of the game which truly feels like Dark Souls. This is where you realize that this game is actually the spiritual successor that we've earned for. It revolutionizes the particular aspect of those games as well. I think it's time to talk about the jump button. It might just be a simple addition when it comes to the other games, but when it comes to Dark Souls, a jump button changes everything. You get so much variety and verticality to your levels, and changes in your gameplay are astounding due to it. I personally would have never guessed that I would have explored rooftops in Dark Souls games. Not just this, From Software utilizes the jump button in the most perfect sense. They add rewarding locations and boss fights along with the items to find in these rooftops, and secluded locations that you can only get using your jump button. This is also prevalent to the open world, where you can jump and also double jump using your horse torrent. You get a torrent early in the game. Through a spectral steed, you can whistle, which you can use to summon him. Not to mention, legacy dungeons are also where you find the main bosses of the game for the most part, in particular the first two bosses. Not to spoil anything, but those two first bosses kicked my ass for solid 30 to 40 tries. So I can say for sure that bosses here are definitely way more difficult than I imagined. You can level up much faster in Elden Ring due to the open world design. You can find a lot of the rune farming spots and level up in the early of the game. So to counteract that expertise in the gameplay, From Software decided to make the bosses much more difficult. This results in a challenging boss encounters anywhere, everywhere that you go. I didn't mean for this video to be a comparison between the previous installations in Dark Souls, Sekiro and Bloodborne. However, Elden Ring owes a lot to those games' success and design. It is the perfect evolution of the SoulsBorne franchise, and is the next step in the open world design as well. It gets rid of the hazardous game design, the overly focused microtransactions, the cookie cutter open world and boring gameplay limitations placed on the storytelling. Instead, it chooses to focus on the one thing it does best, a world that's fully and wholly interactive. Elden Ring is perhaps one of my favorite games of all time, and it's not due to any bias I have with From Software game design. It is instead due to the marvelous feat it pulled off, becoming a world-renowned game despite it being so unconventional, difficult, and different in style to the open world modern games. This is a game that challenges its players, yet gives them enough route to take and figure out their way through this unforgiving world. It rewards your creativity and your use of everything around you, from player summons, spirit summons, spells, ashes of war and rune farming. You have full freedom in leveling up as much as you can and becoming the ultimate Elden Lord even before you enter the true meat of the game. Elden Ring is an achievement of a lifetime from passionate developers who truly care about their player base. It has no added DLCs at the moment. It doesn't feature any content such as the Ubisoft's XP booster. It is a game that revolves entirely around the player, and I can safely say that From Software truly has done it again. If you like this video, make sure to please leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel for more content. And if you want to stay up to date with my future content, make sure to hit that bell icon for instant notification on my newer uploads as well. Please consider supporting me on my Patreon to see these special videos earlier, including with the extra rewards. And check out my playlist of all of these special videos that I have already released. I'm very proud of them, and do let me know what you think of them. Have an amazing day, and I will see you all later.